oh cool, you're producing a film. Like, what does that mean?
Unfortunately, time and time again, where I felt unheard or belittled.
Our entry into the film industry, we are not Nepo babies.
I had always wished I had an in. We didn't have that, and it is a level of envy, but also when you look back on it, you're appreciative that you did do all the work yourself.
But it's great when you find someone you work with who also becomes an instant friend. We've felt instantly like allies. In this month's episode, we are celebrating Women's Month. I am really the worst with intros, but I think this needs no introduction to me because I feel like I've spent every day, every waking second with you for the last month. No other than my producer, co-producer. What is even the title? I always get confused. I hesitate when I introduce
friends.
you to people.
You know what?
Yeah. The other day, I introduced you. I was like, oh, and this is, and I paused. And a friend of ours thought, like, I was like, what did I say? My partner or
Your
something?
girlfriend?
Yeah. This is my girlfriend.
It's a compliment.
But it's great when you find someone you work with who also becomes an instant friend. And I know we've talked about this before, how we've felt instantly like allies. And
yes, agreed.
And that's the most important thing, I think, when we are co-producing our very first feature film together. I didn't even introduce you. No other than Gabrielle Pearson.
Thank you. Oh my God, what a beautiful introduction.
Really casual and jumbled. But yeah, so Gab and I are co-producing a film right now. So we've been really working hand in hand since the second you arrived from Australia a month ago.
Yeah. So we've been in, development with this feature for honestly 2 years. It's been a really long time.
Yeah.
And then we started working together, I don't know, like a year ago?
No, I feel like it was like halfway through last year.
Yeah.
Maybe like June, July, I feel.
And
August,
finished development together, went through the funding phase, and now we're finally in pre-production.
Yay! Insert the round of applause here. No, it's a big deal. It's a big deal. I think especially that I remember when I officially changed my Instagram handle to producer, because then I looked at your profile, I was like, Gab's a producer too. I was like, I want the producer title. No, it is, because nobody understands, or very rarely do people really understand what being a producer means.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, everyone always asks me. I was just saying this before, like, is the producer the person who just like has all the money? And I wish that was always the case.
Also. Where is the money? We are looking for the money.
But for those who are asking what a producer is, we're basically the people who work hand in hand with the director who helps bring the vision to life, and with the writer as well. So in our case, our writer of our film First Light is also the director, so James, and he's incredible. And he works through the vision, we assist with the vision, and then we help bring it all together.
Yeah, as much as I've tried to Google this to try to explain it properly to people also, because everybody's just like, oh cool, you're producing a film. Like, what does that mean? Which is really a valid question, because if I wasn't in this industry, I wouldn't also know. But I see it now, especially since we're like thick in production. I feel like it's like starting my business all over again. Being a producer is like being the CEO of a startup, and each movie is a new business, you know?
Oh, yeah. Every single movie is it's essentially its own company that you start, build it all up, and then once you're finished, you have to break it all down.
Yeah.
And you just start all over again for the next film.
And it's like
insane.
Like any company, it's like you hire the people, and so you pick the heads of the departments, which is pretty much what we do as a producer. Like, you have your like art department, casting and everything, and then you have like the director, which is kind of like a COO maybe, right? And then it's like you have your line producer, who's kind of like your CFO in a way.
But basically,
all just comes together, and as a producer, you wear many hats. You put your ego away, you sweep the floor when you have to, and then you also get mad at people and put people in place when you have to. So it's really like being a CEO.
Definitely.
Yeah.
I think, and that's probably the hardest balance as a producer, is like being able to wear that managerial hat and make sure that everyone knows that you are the mother of the film and that you support everyone and nurture everyone, but also have to be the bad guy. But also remind everyone that you are in the trenches with them and physically do that as well. Like you said, sweep the floors. We have to.
For me, that's what I love about being in the film industry and actually working in, say, like movies, because everyone's an equal but also not an equal at the same time. It's like you're all working together for this one vision, and it's our job as producers to create the like environment to sustain everyone.
Yes, but you know what? I think that mentality is a very new mentality, that we're all equal. I think the film industry has had a really bad reputation for a very long time, where there is a huge hierarchy problem and people are scared to talk to certain departments or talk to certain people, and we really want to nurture a very we're all equal, we're all in this together, we're cogs in a machine making something work.
Okay, you're right. I say that, but now in hindsight I want to take it back so quickly, because maybe I say that because we were on the same page, I think, when we first met.
Totally.
Where that's where we wanted to go with this film, because I think I can safely say that's also how we run our companies. Gab is also the CEO and founder of Magella Productions, which is the name of your production company and also your middle name. And Christelle obviously runs Clue Media Productions, but our production companies, aside from that, I think that's where it comes together, and that's where it matters what we both believe in, I think, because when we first initially met, that is something that
we
brought us
with.
together.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's why we clicked so easily.
Also kind of unknowingly though.
Yes.
Because I think I only realized that when you got here, to be honest. Because when it first happened, when we were first introduced, it was like, okay, let's get this project going. I don't think I really looked into like who you are and what you stood for as a company as much as when I actually met you and I realized like, oh, hey, like for me, it's like all of the values that I try to communicate and put out there was also not for nothing. You know, because there's someone out there or there's some kind of belief where it's like, maybe there is a higher being or someone actually putting us together, which feels like this whole process in general.
Yeah. And I think as well, you know, it's one thing to say that you stand for all of these things, and then there's another thing to actually do all of these things. And I think like working together, we both see how we work and how we treat our team and how we want it to be a really fun and inclusive environment. So I think putting the actions into words is when we're like, oh no, she gets me.
Yeah, for sure. And it's nice that, I mean, especially now at this chair, which by the way, I think you noticed a little something different in this episode. We are sitting on our producer chairs, also called a makeup chair. But it doubles, as everything does. But what was I saying? I think especially culturally also, when you came in as like a international company, an Australian company, and blending that into our Filipino culture also, where things like, I mean, since this is a Women's Month episode, not just like with gender here, but even in terms of, and we've talked about this before, and that's, I think, the moment I knew I was like, I can tell Gab anything because I think she gets where I'm coming from without taking anything personally. Not that this was personal, but just like in a room, for example, like say, I think it's pretty obvious, we're pretty new here, you know, we're young, you know, and that's really it. Like there's no hiding that. And we're young in a room filled with seasoned professionals in the industry. And sometimes, especially with us coming in, there's the good side that we've definitely seen in our team that's been helping us and guiding us through this. But also there is a moment of trying to overcompensate and kind of, in quotation, fake it.
Oh, yeah. Every day. And I think that's not just, you know, this production, but throughout our careers, you know, as young women, it's so hard to accept in ourselves that, you know, people take us seriously, or people should take us seriously, and we deserve the respect that we give other people. And I think consistently we're always trying to prove ourselves, because we have kind of been like brainwashed into thinking we don't deserve that respect and we need to try harder because we're women, because we're from a younger generation. We have to try double as hard to be heard or make our point or be taken seriously.
Do you actually feel like that's true?
Yes.
Okay. Just making sure. No, and I say that because, like, I guess where I'm going with that is, like, getting you to kind of share your personal experiences with that, because I know we've behind the camera already shared that with each other, but I think it's also nice for people to know, like, I don't know, like, it's one thing to say like, oh, it's still happening, but like I actually feel like, well, for me, for example, it's like I knew it in essence, you know, like, of course, like, especially in this industry over the last couple of years, there is a big movement around that, but I didn't exactly really feel it until I felt it.
Yeah, and you know, we can blame society, but I think it's also within ourselves. It's something that we've put on to ourselves, things that we've learned from other generations, and so a lot of it is unlearning to feel like, yes, like people should be able to take us seriously and we are good enough. And it's just a consistent reminder to yourself that you don't have to prove yourself. You're already there. You're already doing it. So I guess it's just reassuring ourselves. But I think it's just ingrained in women that we always have to try harder to just be heard.
Yeah, and I think it goes back to, for me at least, like the timing in this feature coming together, and after years of like wishing and hoping and like, you know, praying for kind of this moment, to be honest. It makes sense to me why it finally happened now. And I think I mentioned this to you before, where I'm like, I feel like if it was any earlier, I would have still really not believed myself. Whereas now it's like, even if I feel that, I give myself that reassurance where I'm like, no, I earned my right to be here, not through skipping ropes, but because I'm here. Like, I'm being myself. Like, that's it.
Literally that scene in Barbie when all of the girls win the awards and they're like, I won this because I deserve it. Like, that is so our lives, what we want to be able to do. But consistently, anytime we're like, oh, we've really done something amazing, we're always downplaying ourselves and always being like, oh no, I you know, I needed all of these people's help. It's like, no, actually, like, take the credit where it's due. You deserve this and you've tried very hard to make it happen.
That reminds me of, I don't know which award show that was. I think it was Emmys or something like that. But she went up on the stage and just like, and I'd like to thank myself because no one else would have gotten me here but myself. I felt that so hard because honestly, like, I want to thank myself.
And we need to do that more. And it's actually, I was thinking about this recently, like growing up, loving yourself was a really negative connotation. Like, if you loved yourself, you would be like
selfish,
up yourself,
or like
selfish,
conceited.
And it's a very different, and I think that's one of the things that we need to unlearn. Loving yourself isn't an arrogance, it's a self-worth, and you need to have that self-worth, and it's completely different from any kind of negative connotation that brings, like, I think it's only a positive thing, and I think that's something that we want to bring to the women, you know, who are coming up after us.
And also the men. We've talked about this before, too.
Love the boys.
Yeah. Oh, we love them. Yeah. No, but definitely. And it does help, though, as much as we can be there to validate ourselves. And I've found throughout this process of actually having you as, like, in quotation, as an ally, that it is very normal to have your moments of weakness and doubt, but that is where a support system is important because, like, I think we kind of balance each other out in that sense too, where it's like we'll give ourselves that reminder every other day where we're like, no, like, you're doing great, you know?
Totally.
Because I mean, we are, and not that it matters like what age we are, but maybe generationally, even if you grew up in Australia and I grew up here in the Philippines, like, our environment in terms of, say, like, the media we consumed is very similar, had the same subliminal messages, you know? So we are on that process. It's kind of like a mirror where it's like we're mirroring each other, not just our strengths, but also where we still need to sharpen ourselves. And I love being able to work side by side with you and see qualities that I admire and want for myself too. Because
same with you, honestly, every day.
Yeah, but no, and it's really true because sometimes, especially when it comes, and I was explaining this to you, culturally, like in the Philippines, like, age is such a big thing here, right? Where, well, maybe worldwide. I mean, yes, respect your elders for sure. And like what we've learned from this film alone, like, we are so lucky to have this, like, the seasoned people in the industry on our side. But it's things like that where, but vice versa, we have as much to teach them as they can learn from us.
Definitely.
Yeah. Moving backwards a little bit. So with Magella, and I guess with Clue as production companies, when did you know what you were fighting for? If you are fighting for anything. I'm just assuming you are. So
oh no, we're fighting. Yeah. We are fighting every day.
Yeah.
The good fight though.
Yeah.
I think I realized, what I wanted to stand for and what my production company wanted to kind of harness happened almost accidentally, and it happened through experience. When I started Magella, it was because I wrote a play that I put on at the Melbourne Theatre Company in Australia. And they asked me what my production company was. I was like, oh, I don't have one. I'll make one. I've got a middle name, Magella. I'll just make it that. And I didn't really give it much weight. I just kind of wrote it down because I needed something. And then from that and from other experiences when I started, producing short films and music videos and doing things from the smell of an oily rag, like really just like hustling. I had experiences, unfortunately, time and time again, where I felt, unheard or belittled. And not only myself, but I would see other people around me, minority groups, anyone who has never really been prioritized within the film industry before. Mm-hmm. And that's a real problem for me. And actually, our cinematographer, Amy, who's on this film as well, she was one of the people who said to me, you shouldn't have to put up with that kind of thing. You need to say like that something isn't right or something's hurting you. Like you need to actually call people out on it. And it was like a switch in my brain that I was like, oh my God, I've put up with this for so long. I'm also from a very small country town. Like I'm from community that hasn't expanded themselves with diversity, and there are a lot of antiquated thinking and a lot of antiquated mind frames towards women and towards any kind of minority. So I think from that's when I was like, okay, I think I actually want a bit of a purpose. And so I started working on my my mission statement and what I actually wanted to make. And naturally it was attracting the right people as well. So I think very organically it started attracting people who were like, oh, I resonate with what you're doing. I resonate with the stories you're trying to tell. I want to make something with you. And then all of a sudden it just became this thing that I started making very like fun and vibrant and inclusive and positive content that has been a really nice place to be able to base myself, particularly because it attracts the right people, or at least the people I want to attract. Everyone's got their own groups and their own niches, but I think I've never had a more positive experience and a more positive work experience than being able to harness that kind of community.
Yeah, and I think that's exactly like you telling me that story. I can kind of just see this film coming together because it was in the same way where I just feel like we attracted each other, but because I also knew what I was looking for. And then it's just funny how it's like I said earlier, it's like the more we actually got to know each other, we realized, oh, we stand for the same thing. We believe in the same things. And that's why naturally also with the people that we bring into our team for this project, it weeds out the people who don't align.
Totally.
Right?
And, we are very privileged that we're in a position in an industry where if we are working with someone and their values don't align or their, overall vision or work ethic doesn't align with ours, we don't have to work with them. Like we are very, very lucky that we can be like, okay, it's not working out. Like I'll find someone else.
Yeah, it's really like, thank you, bye.
Next.
And that's what it is. Like there is a very diplomatic also, like people in general, communication, like there are diplomatic ways to be like stern and be decisive and not be a bitch about it. Like, it's just, and no, I don't mean that as like being a female bitch, but like just being like rude about it.
Yeah.
And I think that's what we as leaders and do very well, because
totally
we agree on that part too. Like a job's a job. You know what I mean? Like if you can't get the job done, we're making the decisions for our mini company, which is our film. And we're trying to not just appease everyone in the film, including ourselves, but there's so many stakeholders involved too.
Oh yeah.
Where it's like you're navigating how to do that. But for sure, you get some people angry on the way.
Oh, I think you can't avoid it. And it's funny, generally my bread and butter is advertising, and I'm working with a lot of, brands and clients, and then also the agencies who help bring the marketing vision together, and then the production company. So there are a lot of people above us that we have to get clearance from. And it's funny, with this feature, I'm like, oh wow, we don't have to like deal with all of that But we have to deal with a whole nother layer of things, investors, people who have a large creative say in the vision. Also politically, like we have to make sure we're kind of crossing our T's and dotting our I's. And it's I would say, it's honestly a lot more work than anything commercial personally. But also it's the same. It's just a different kind of category.
Yeah. And I think it's also maybe a lot more work, and please correct me if this is not how you actually feel about it, but I think it is also a lot of work because we do really care about what we're producing.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
And I think that's why we get so
emotionally attached to it. Yeah, because like going into this also before, I think I've talked to you about this, how I look up to like Reese Witherspoon's production company, Hello Sunshine, because they're very specific about amplifying women's voices also and telling women stories from like the women's perspective. I think at the end of the day, this is what it is. I thought going into this industry, like, yeah, I'd make any movie that comes my way. Or like, I guess if you're in advertising, like, yeah, I'm going to take whatever client comes my way because I need to pay bills, right? Which happens and that's okay. But for me, once I shifted my mindset where it's like, no, I want to purposely only produce content that I align with, then it made me feel that much more fulfilled.
Yes. And I think also when you have such a specific vision and mission for what you want to stand for, again, you attract the right kind of work. So it does weed out the work that doesn't align with you because people know that you're not going to produce something like that. And every now and then something does come through that you're like, why did this hit my inbox? Like, this is not aligned with anything that I create. But honestly, 9 times out of 10, things that come through, you're like, they reached out to me very specifically. They're people who are like-minded and, you know, want to tell the same kind of stories as me. So I think naturally, again, it all aligns.
Yeah. And I guess that's my next question. For you, what's the expectation versus reality? You know, like I'm saying, like sometimes it's like, of course, that's our expectation where it's like, it'll hit your inbox and you're like, wow, this aligns. But also sometimes the reality of it is like, you have bills to pay. And it's like, the reality of it is you're looking for financing, you know? So how do you draw that boundary for yourself and like, I guess your own integrity of being like, this is my hard yes and this is my hard no. Like, this is my threshold. Like,
yeah, I mean, I think the things that pay the bills but don't necessarily creatively align with what you want to do, you just don't put them up on your website and you just don't really advertise them. And, you know, I've done a lot of things that, and, you know, it's not to discredit that work that I've done, but I look at the final product and think, oh, you know what, I don't think this really aligns with my overall vision. The only times that, the only times that I've really turned something down that hasn't aligned is just like a hard, this is offensive, or like this, this is definitely, if this ever gets out, I would never want to put my name to this. So I would never put my name to something that I didn't think was okay, but I would only ever promote something if I was like, this really aligns with what I want to do.
So there is, in that sense, then, when we say in quotation faking it, are we faking it? What are we faking?
God, it's that's a hard question to answer because I feel like, and another reason why we've hit it off so well is because I think we're both very emotionally, wear our heart on our sleeves. We are very transparent people. So I don't think we're faking everything overall, but I think the little things, like what we were saying before about, you know, just trying to feel like we have to prove ourselves, like, days that you feel like you can't go to work or that you're having a really bad personal day or you're going through something very emotionally draining, you fake that. Like there are other angles that we can fake it.
No, for sure. And I guess that's where it comes in, where it's like we're all faking it a little bit to an extent. And I think the more I'm actually exposed to, say, seasoned people, I realize that nobody's not fake.
Oh yeah.
Nobody knows what they're doing.
No one knows what they're doing.
Which makes me feel better. And mind you, again, maybe this is because this is the type of people I'm attracting, and we've had this conversation where we've talked about how I've never actually felt, not never. I felt it. I felt belittled before, for sure.
Oh yeah.
And I think side note, like not just being, that's a whole other podcast episode, but even in
We've
terms,
got time.
yeah, even in terms of like the Philippines and Australia coming together, like not just in terms of belittled for my age, for example, and I always joke around about this, but honestly it stings me a little bit where it's like my Asian genes makes me look like I'm a 15-year-old all the freaking time. Like maybe 16 pushing it, you know? So like a lot of times when I do walk in a room, like people don't take me seriously because they think, oh, this young girl, which also challenges me because I'm like, I'd rather be the underdog and have a little push.
Yeah.
But also sometimes culturally also, and I've talked to you about this, how our own culture looks down on ourselves and always thinks anything Western is also better. That's just being colonized for 1,000 million years.
Yes.
But that's where I'm segueing into, like, for you coming to the Philippines and working with the Filipinos, where have you kind of seen, or like, what do you think of our work environment here in terms of what you're used to?
Oh my God. No,
Yeah.
I feel incredibly humbled, honestly, and I've said this a lot to different people, particularly investors, you know, a lot of people who haven't had the pleasure of interacting with the Philippines and working with this country. Like, I feel like us Westerners need to step it up, honestly. Like, your work ethic is incredible. You are the kindest people I've ever worked with. And I think it really does humble everything that we know about the industry within the Western lens. Like, and particularly with the spiritual layer to it as well. I think it's really
so much of it in the last couple of weeks.
Oh my gosh, but I think it's so beautiful.
Yeah.
It adds like a really almost like a romanticism point to what we're making, and it makes everything feel like warmer and gentler, and everyone really cares. Like, oh my God, our producer Jane, for example, working with our producer Jane, she has naturally become like a mother to
and it's
us.
funny because exactly in the production industry, and for so long I think your Australian team actually thought she was my mother because I would call her Mother Jane, because in the Philippines titles are so important, right? And so that's something we had to also pass on, get used to. But yes, Mother Jane is our mother, in our production mom. Yeah.
And I've just never had that level of, I guess, like care and love that has been provided by the Filipino community. Like, it's something really, really special, I think, that Australians take for granted.
Note also, though, in the same way, I'm so and I think about this all the time, because like everything, it's all balance, right? So too much of anything is bad, too little of anything is also not great. Except for when it comes to you and your own own relationship with yourself, because you're never not enough. But where I was going with that is, sometimes I'm so glad, like, the Australian work ethic also rubs off a little bit here, where you're just like, because here we never stop working, you know? And it's like, sometimes you're like, no, like, work-life balance, like, stop working, like,
my God.
have a little fun, like, go get a massage. You know, where it's like, I'm so glad that's also being taught, because it's also not healthy to just be working all the time.
Very true.
Yeah.
Very true. Maybe that's a little bit of my Gen Z, not that I'm millennial.
We're the cutoff.
Are we?
No, oh yeah, you're right. We're the cutoff of millennial. We're the last year.
Yeah, still technically millennial, but, you know, the Gen Z mentality of self-care, and sometimes it gets taken a little bit too far, because we also should respect our work and love our work and want to work. But kind of having in that layer of, having a work-life balance, because I never want to hate my job. And
you're right. Maybe that's a generational thing too, though.
Yeah,
but
I think so.
I was just saying, because, like, I was telling Mother Jane this, I think, how I love seeing, like, the loyalty that the people in this industry have to the industry, which really makes, because I get it. Like, once you feel the film, maybe not for everyone, but for me, it's like the second I got a taste of the film industry, it's like an addiction.
It's
like,
a love
you
affair.
work so hard. It's a love affair, my favorite type of love affair. You work so hard, and then it's like you're overworked and you're stressed, and it's like 24/7. And like I was just telling you this morning, I was like, I got up in the middle of my sleep last night, and I was just like, numbers, or like the contract.
It's in our dreams. It's haunting us.
And then it's like taken away from you, because then the project's done, and then you're like, oh my God, my lover, come back to me.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like a breakup. It's a very strange feeling. It's like when you watch it's like when you watch a series that you're so addicted to, and then all of a sudden you've just watched the last episode and you're like, what do I do with my life now? I guess I'll just find something else.
Yeah.
Like
on to the next project.
Yeah.
And that's what, I mean, don't get me started yet because we haven't even started production yet.
I know.
Because even the thought of like saying goodbye to everyone already, like,
don't.
Yeah, exactly. It also makes me think like, oh man, because on the next project you work with a whole, we'll work together again, Gab. But like, you know, it won't be the exact same family.
No, and your family's always changing and growing. And it's nice having an evolving family for sure. But I also understand, and I guess this is also why it is so hard to break into the industry, and especially for younger people, it's hard to get our foot in the door because people take a long time to establish really important working relationships and really solid working relationships. So then when you get to a point when you're, you know, a younger person, you're trying to kick down a door and get your foot in, everyone's like, oh, but I've got my team.
Yeah.
You know, I've got my reliable people. And sometimes, you know, unfortunately, sometimes you do take a chance on someone and you're like, that was
it backfires.
Yeah.
My gosh, this is the perfect time to mention it because we mentioned this before also, because our entry into the film industry, like, we are not Nepo babies, you know? So like, and like,
not that there's anything wrong with that.
No, but it's like, I mean, exactly for that, there's no explaining that. Like, we don't come from families who were in the industry, so we did kind of make our way here, and that we opened the doors for ourselves and doors opened for us, and we made our way into this industry and wiggled our way in. Yeah. And we are here right now.
And I think it gives you a certain type of appreciation that you wouldn't otherwise have. Like, it's, you know, but at the same time, like, we joke about, is it Nepo babies or Nepo?
Is it Nepo?
One of
Consensus. N-E-P-O. Nepo. I think it's Nepo. I don't know. Nar. I don't nar. I don't nar. Nepotism. Oh, you're right. It's Nepo babies. Okay.
Nepo babies.
Yeah. Nepotism.
You know, I think there's also a level of jealousy there from us because I had always wished I had an in. Like, you know, we joke about it because we're like, well, I wish I did have that opportunity, actually. I wish, you know, my mom was a producer on an amazing, you know, production company, and she got me interning and she introduced me to all these people. We didn't have that, and it is a level of, you know, envy, but also when you look back on it, you're appreciative that you did do all the work yourself. So it's a love-hate relationship.
And also when people are like, especially when everything's coming together now, it's like people ask me, I don't know, my lawyers ask me, my accountant, they're like, wait, like, how did you get here? Like, how did you become, you know, like, and for me also there is a sense of just like, I don't know, it feels fated. Like, I also some days, I worked hard, took that film course, like my interest was in film, but so many times I tried to get out of it because I thought I didn't want to get heartbroken from all the rejections from the film industry, but somehow I still made my way back in, which to me there's no explanation, but like I guess it's for me. You know?
Yeah, you unconsciously are working even though you don't think that you are. Like, you're always kind of striving towards that. And it's funny, you know, as you said, like, how did you get here? I have a lot of people, especially recently, being like, oh, wow, things are working out really great for you. Like, good for you. And it's like, no, I worked really hard to get here. It hasn't just come up. Like, it is years and years of work. It's not just like all of a sudden we've caught our big break. It is so much work behind it that gets faded because you do forget all of the hard yards. You're like, oh, I guess I've just got it, but you almost like disvalue the work that you've done to get there.
Yeah, I think that's what I was telling you. I was telling a childhood friend of mine, her mom, about it, like this whole movie coming together, and I was like, sometimes honestly I'm like, did I really do the work? And she was like, Christelle, I have known you since you were in kindergarten. Like, you were always the girl. Kindergarten, like, you always worked hard. Yeah. And so there is an amount of hard work, and that is also to say, like, if you really want something, it's one thing to wish for it, but you do have to take action.
I wonder if it goes back to being a woman and always kind of underplaying yourself. Yeah, like maybe that, I don't know, men, do you guys do you get this feeling?
Yeah.
Is it just us?
Tell us in the comments below. No.
Swipe up.
To the left, to the right. Or is this are we dating online?
It's new for me.
Yeah. Okay. We're going to break it up a little bit, and I'm going to throw in a little more casual question because I'm curious. What of our first impressions of each other? What was your first impression of Christelle, Gab?
On Zoom or in person?
Oh, is there a different impression both times?
No. Okay. Honestly, when after I got off the first Zoom call with you, James and I called each other straight away and we're like, we love her. She gets us. Like, truly. And James can vouch for me with this. We were truly like, she's our people. So straight away, it was an instant love.
Yeah. Aww. No, and I think, okay, we'll go back and forth now.
I hope. Yours is like, mine was terrible.
Yeah, why am I here? I really remember that first call. Well, I remember it, but I was at that point where I had given up on my, in quotation, I guess, not quotation, my dreams of being in this industry. I really had thrown it aside and I was like, nah, it's not for me. But like, obviously a part of me in the back of my head and with my team, I'm like, this is the year we're gonna make a film, guys, like, you know. But also I didn't want to get excited because there are so many times where it's like we bid for something and it hasn't come together, right?
So many almost.
Yeah. And like, so when I first met you both that day, my mentality to it was just like, hey, love the story. That's already what got me, obviously, that first meeting. I was like, this is an interesting story and I guess purpose, and I was like, wherever this goes, I'm just gonna help them with however much I can give also. And whether or not something comes out of it, cool, like I got to help them. Yeah. That's kind of the thing.
I love that.
And we actually saw each other in LA last year for a quick coffee. And my first impression then, I was comfortable because like I thought, and this is your personality type already, like you're so confident in who you are and in yourself. Like that's how I see you. And even now I'm like, man, I need to learn from Gab because you're just very direct. And I've told you this before. I'm like, I wish I can be more direct and be less flowery sometimes. And I really admire that in you. And so I remember meeting you that first time and I was like, man, this girl has her shit together. And then I realized you're the same age. And I was like, we both have our shit together. And that's why I always remind you, I'm like, Gab, we're so young. Like, we've accomplished so much already. And that's something we both need to be proud of.
True.
Yeah.
I'm just like trying to accept it right now.
Yeah. So
it's funny.
I waited for this moment to tell you on the podcast, by the way. Yeah.
It's funny hearing that because that's, you know, perspective of other people in perspective of yourself. I'm like constantly doubting myself and constantly second guessing every single thing that I do. So it's nice to hear that that's how I come across, and maybe that's where I'm faking it. But I don't feel like I'm being fake. Like I feel like I'm always being very as genuine as I possibly can. So I love that this is the impression.
Yeah, I
confidence.
think because I think there was a moment when we first met. We just all have different strengths and weaknesses, right? So maybe we're faking it because we're not as strong in that certain category in our life, but it doesn't mean we're not successful or doing well in other areas of our life, right? And that's where it is comforting for me because I started Clue alone, and of course I have an amazing team to back me, but still sometimes I feel like I'm fighting alone. And that's why when I met you, and like the title of being co-producer is so important because I love the fact that I can lean on someone else.
Oh yeah.
And other people and actually realize that I don't need to do life on my own. And that's like the bigger lesson that I'm trying to let it reflect in my personal life because I want to be able to trust people. And that's what I told you and James the first time. I think after that first weekend, I was like, naturally, I have trust issues with people I work with, everyone. And so meeting you both and actually getting to know you within the first few days, I was like, oh, I can trust them. And it is very comforting, especially as women. This is the Women's Month episode. Genuinely feeling like it's not a competition. Like, I don't think I've ever, maybe I've made it up in my head, like, oh yeah, it's a competition. Like, maybe the thought just passed once. But when I'm working with you, it never feels like it's a competition.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's the definition of a team, and like being able to, and you know, it's like we both run our own companies, and yes, you do have people working with you and for you and together, but at the end of the day, like, you are Clue and I am Magella, and it all falls on you. Yeah. And so it's so nice being able to co-collaborate with that and be like, yeah, I've got a teammate and we're able to, you know, your success is my success and your failure is my failure. So we genuinely want to build it up for the greater good. So it's a really empowering feeling. Yeah. And it's funny, like, that you talk about your trust issues, because I feel like I almost trust too much and I get burnt so much, and I'm still like learning to kind of know how to protect myself. So I think it's been very lucky with you knowing that, you know, I can let guards down that I probably should put up with other scenarios. Does that make sense?
It does, but also life threw it at us where very quickly we had to learn to see the best and worst of each other. You know what I mean? And like not just in like the in sickness and health part, but like this all happened very fast. It was very like sink or swim, and we had to keep afloat, and we had to just go head on into this project and learn to communicate. And I think that's what we do well, where we communicate. We keep things transparent. If we're having a bad day, we're like, I'm having a bad day, Gab. Like, but like, also we need to get this done. Like, you know, yeah. I know we're almost nearing this wrap up of an amazing Women's Month episode. So, future us, what role do you see our female-led production companies playing in shaping the film industry landscape? Or at least, where do we hope to go?
As you said, like, we're in a very pinnacle point in the film industry where things are changing. Still a lot needs to be done and needs to change, and I don't think we'll ever get to the full point of equality within the world. I mean, you know, a girl can dream, but I would hope that we would just contribute to the togetherness of making film and making art, and also just getting rid of the toxicities that have been left behind. Yeah, just nurturing the community and celebrating the community, because I don't think a work environment has to be toxic. I think that that's an outdated mentality of what makes a good boss or good work. You know, we can nurture something really safe and beautiful and also make incredible work. Everyone feels equal and important. So I just want to, I don't know if we can change things, but I want to contribute.
Yeah, same. Copy paste answer. I completely feel the exact same way, though. And I think if there's anything to add to that, it's summing up what you first started with when we started this episode, where it's just we're learning to fake it and unlearning to fake it. Yeah.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Get that
wisdom.
Tattooed.
Yeah. So, you know what also we're getting tattooed is our next initiatives in life, which is this film.
Yes.
But is there anything else that you want to share as something, a project you're working on, or something you're working on for yourself that's coming up for your company and for you as Gab?
Yeah, I mean, you know, I have another feature in development, and then another feature after that I'm writing. So I think there are a lot of exciting things to come. You know, life always throws curveballs at you, and your life plan will always change. It'll never be what you had thought, but I think it will always work out the way that the effort that you put in will be what you get out. So yeah, that's a roundabout answer.
Yeah.
But basically, exciting things to come.
There are.
Internationally.
And you heard it here first earlier that you mentioned it, and I was going to cut you off, but I was like, no, Christelle, let her talk. But you said it earlier, and we're claiming it, that this film is our break, and this film is going to touch a lot of lives, and also just be nice to watch. You know, like, the story is one thing, but it's going to be a beautiful film.
Yeah.
With beautiful locations, beautiful people behind the scenes. And I'm so happy that with the platforms that we have these days also, more people who actually are behind the scenes are able to share their story in front of the cameras.
Definitely.
So even if on a day-to-day we're the behind the scenes and you don't realize that it's the producers doing all the work and it's just so tiring. No. But I'm very happy that we have this platform, and we live in a time where we have the freedom to share our stories.
Yeah, and celebrate it as well, and remind people that it's, you know, not just our beautiful actors who make it. It's literally hundreds of people.
No. It is us. You're welcome. It is hundreds of people.
It's a big family, and I'm so excited for everyone to see it. I mean, I'm excited for us to see it. We haven't even shot it yet.
Yeah, but that's it. Lots to look forward to in celebrating each other and celebrating every month, really. Month for women, month for men, month for just feeling like you have big dreams and can achieve them. I hope this inspires one or two aspiring producers, filmmakers, creatives out there to just have a little faith in whatever life has in store for you.
Yeah. And just keep going. Christelle was saying, like, we haven't been born into the industry and we've worked very hard, and I think there is something to say about hard work. And, you know, if it is something that anyone watching wants to explore, like, reach out to us, reach out to people.
Slide into my DM.
Yes. Oh my God.
Okay, we need to stop.
Okay.
I think that's a wrap. Yeah. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
We actually have so much work to do, so let's wrap it up. That is episode 9. Just Clue, just faking it.